Today we're tackling a classic gardening dilemma. Should you start your plants from seeds or head to the nursery and pick up some ready-to-go seedlings, also known as starts? Both options have their advantages and disadvantages, and the best choice for you will depend on a few things, such as your experience level, your budget, and what you're hoping to grow. And whether you start all of your plants from seed or buy all of your plants as starts, or if you do a combination of both, it doesn't make you any more or less of a gardener. Gardening is a great hobby and way of life, and growing your own food or flowers, no matter how you grow them, is still rewarding, and I personally do a little bit of both. First up, let's talk about starting plants from seeds. There's something truly rewarding about watching a tiny seed transform into a thriving plant. But is it always the best way to go? Let's look at the pros. The first thing is that seeds are cost effective. This is a big one for many gardeners. A packet of seeds typically contains dozens, sometimes hundreds of seeds for usually less than the cost of one starter plant. If you're looking to fill a large garden or grow a lot of one type of plant, seeds are definitely the more budget-friendly option. You can also find a wider variety with seeds. Nurseries offer a great selection of starts, but the variety of seeds available is often much larger. You can find unique heirloom varieties, specialty colors, and plants that might not be commercially viable for nurseries to stock as starts. If you're looking for something specific or unusual, seeds are often your best bet. Next is control over growing conditions. When you start seeds indoors, you have complete control over the soil, light, temperature, and watering. This allows you to provide the optimal environment for healthy early growth. Moving along, another pro is staggered planting or succession sowing. With seeds, you can easily stagger your planting times to ensure you'll have a few harvests throughout the season, which is great for things like leafy greens or root vegetables. And speaking of root vegetables, there are some things you just shouldn't buy as starts, root vegetables being a prime example. Root vegetables don't usually transplant well, and things like radishes can grow in as little as 20 days, and for usually a 6-pack at a nursery, you'll likely spend anywhere from about $5 to $6 on only 6 radishes, when a pack of seeds is much cheaper, or you could just buy them from the store or farmer's market pretty inexpensively. And lastly, you really do develop a sense of pride or accomplishment when you successfully grow something from seed, and it's a really great and exciting feeling. But starting everything from seed isn't always a walk in the park, so let's talk about some of the cons to consider. The first is time and effort. Starting seeds requires time, patience, and a bit of effort. You need to set up your seed starting station, sow the seeds, monitor their progress, and eventually transplant them. It's a more involved process than simply buying a plant that's ready to go. There can also be higher failure rates. Not all seeds will germinate, and even those that do can be susceptible to damping off disease or other early stage problems. You might end up with fewer plants than you initially intended. Seed starting also requires specific supplies which can add to your initial investment. To successfully start seeds indoors, you'll definitely need grow lights, but even if you're starting seeds outdoors, if you live in a warm enough climate, or if you have a greenhouse, you'll still need seed starting trays, pots, and a seed starting mix, and there's a lot of information on that out there, and there are a lot of people who will swear by one thing, but then others who swear against the same thing, so you have to figure out what you want to do or try, and it's definitely a learning experience to find out what works best for you. Timing is also crucial. You need to know the right time to start your seeds indoors or outdoors based on your local climate and the plant's growing requirements. Starting too early or too late can negatively impact your harvests. Seed starting can also be messy. Let's face it, dealing with soil and water indoors can be messy even if you are being careful. I've definitely spilled soil all over my floor before, and even if you are able to start seeds outside, you can still make a mess outside too. And if you do seed starting indoors, one of the worst things is that seed starting stations often attract lots of fungus gnats because damp soil is a perfect environment for them. But then you have them flying all over your house, which can be annoying. Yellow sticky traps or electric traps can help, but you'll still see them fluttering around, and some people use mosquito dunks or bits, which when dissolved into water is known to kill mosquito larvae, but it also works on fungus gnat larvae, but it's another cost to add to your setup and is another thing to deal with. All right, now let's switch sides and talk about getting starts from a nursery and start with the advantages. First up is convenience and speed. This is the biggest draw for many gardeners. You can walk into a nursery, pick out the plants you want, and plant them directly in your garden the same day. It can be a really convenient and quick way to get your garden going. And sometimes life gets in the way and you just didn't have time or weren't able to start seeds in time, so getting yourself some starts can keep you gardening without being behind for certain plants. Or if you're just eager to see your garden looking lush and productive right away, buying starts provides that instant gratification. You don't have to wait weeks or months for tiny seedlings to grow. There's also a reduced risk of failure. Because these plants are already established, they are generally more resilient to environmental stresses and less likely to succumb to early stage diseases and pests. You're essentially skipping the most vulnerable stage of their life, and reputable nurseries take care of their plants, ensuring they are healthy and well nourished. This also makes starts good for beginners. For new gardeners who might feel intimidated by the seed starting process, buying starts can be a less daunting and more successful way to begin. And certain plants just do better as a start. Some plants are notoriously hard to start from seed, and if you don't want to keep attempting to start something from seed, you can cut some of the legwork out of it and just get a start that will be easier to grow. For example, I have never been able to successfully grow artichoke from seed, but I have had pretty good success with getting artichoke starts. And now let's talk about some of the cons of buying starts from a nursery. For one thing, there will be a higher cost. As I mentioned earlier, buying individual starter plants is significantly more expensive than buying a packet of seeds. While the trade-off is that you don't have to worry about the cost of grow lights, seed starting trays, and water, or simply not having a seed starting station take up space in your home, buying enough starts to have the garden that you want can really add up, especially if you're planting in a large area or want to try growing a lot of different plants and varieties, and sometimes some of the starts just aren't a good deal. There's also limited varieties in nurseries. Nurseries typically stock the most popular and commercially viable varieties. You might not find the same range of unique or heirloom options that are available as seeds. There is also less control over growing conditions. You don't know exactly how the nursery plants were grown, what kind of soil they were in, or what fertilizers they received. This can sometimes lead to a bit of an adjustment period when you transplant them into your garden, which leads to the potential for hidden problems. While most nurseries are reputable, there's always a small risk of bringing home plants with hidden pests, diseases, or root-bound issues. It's important to inspect plants carefully before purchasing. And some plant suppliers may also use chemical treatments on your plants that you may not be comfortable having in your garden. Plants also may not be sold at optimum times. Some nurseries just get plants in as soon as they are available to order, but sometimes the growing conditions where these plants will be sold are not ideal. One of my favorite nurseries tells customers that they don't get most of their tomatoes in until mid-April because tomatoes do need a lot of warm weather to grow, so it would be a disservice to sell plants that have likely been grown in a warm greenhouse only to be planted in an area where there could be some cold nights that could stress those plants out. But if you are new to gardening, you may not know that and figure if it's being sold at a certain time that it is the right time to plant them, and that isn't always true. Just because it's being sold doesn't mean it's time to plant. That's why if I do end up buying a start early because maybe I don't want it to sell out, or if it's a good price when I see it, but I know it's not the right time to transplant it, I will baby it and bring it indoors at night and pot it up as needed until I am ready to transplant, just like plants that I have started from seed. Continuing in the realm of buying and planting the wrong plants at the wrong time, especially for new gardeners or people who are growing something new for the first time, another con is that they might not realize they are buying plants that are actually past their prime in some cases, and then they take those plants home and feel like they have a black thumb. For example, this pak choi is starting to bolt, meaning it's about to go to seed. If you were to harvest leaves off of a bolting plant like this, it would taste bitter, and the plant itself won't last for much longer because brassicas don't like heat. But if you've never grown something like this before, you might not be aware of the stage the plant is in and end up buying a bolting plant. Another con is that there may be a missed opportunity for early harvests for some plants. For certain crops, starting seeds indoors early can give you a head start on the growing season and potentially lead to an earlier harvest than buying starts later in the season. You also can't succession sow or stagger the growth of your plants. When you get plants from a nursery, oftentimes they are all going to be the same size or at the same stage. You could try purchasing plants at nurseries later on in the season if perhaps they got new shipments in and your first batch of plants have grown, but it's never a guarantee that nurseries will restock plants, especially after a certain point in the season. As you can see, there's really no single best answer as to whether you should start your plants from seeds or from starts. It really depends on your individual circumstances and priorities. But to recap, choose seeds if you're on a budget, want a wider variety, enjoy the process of nurturing plants from the very beginning, and have the time and space for seed starting. And choose starts if you're looking for convenience and speed, want a higher chance of success, and need plants immediately. As I mentioned earlier, I do a combination of both. While I mostly start from seed, I will pick up starts if there does happen to be a variety available as a start that I haven't seen seeds for, or even a plant I haven't seen seeds available for. Or if I have had trouble growing a certain plant from seed, or if something happened to my seed starts and I don't have time to restart them. Ultimately, the most important thing is to get out there and grow something. Whether you choose the potential of seeds or starts that are ready to go, or a combination of both, the joy of harvesting your own homegrown food or flowers is always well worth the effort.